You wanted a deep dive on leadership skills. Not just the theory, but real-world boots-on-the-ground insights.
Exactly.
So we've got a really fascinating mix of sources for you today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got lists of must-read leadership biographies, reflections on Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches, and even a peek into how McKinsey studies the habits of top CEOs.
Oh, wow.
Get ready for some aha moments.
I think you will.
All right, so
We'll be pulling from articles by Forbes, Full Focus, McKinsey, and the Northridge Group.
lots of variety there.
I think you'll be surprised by how much these seemingly different sources all connect back to a few core principles of leadership.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
All right.
Our mission today isn't to give you a leadership to-do list.
Okay?
We want to help you expand your thinking about what makes a truly great leader and where you can find inspiration in unexpected places.
I like it.
All right, so we're starting with the power of biography.
Okay.
Forbes put out an article listing 10 leadership biographies they consider must-reads.
Must-reads, according to Forbes, at least.
Right? Always good to have a healthy dose of skepticism when you're looking at any top 10 list.
True.
But I have to admit, they had some intriguing picks. The Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I thought the movie was pretty good. But the book apparently dives deeper into Jobs' calculated risks and what didn't work.
Which is just as valuable to learn from, maybe even more so. Failure is a great teacher, but only if we analyze it.
Right.
Jobs was brilliant, but he also made his share of mistakes.
Oh, for sure.
Understanding those helps us see him as a more complete leader, not just a myth.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the book reveals how Jobs' botched launch of the NXT computer ultimately taught him invaluable lessons about market timing and user needs.
Oh, wow, I never thought about that.
It's true. Those were lessons that later informed his success at Apple. See, failures can be our best teachers.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about celebrating successes, but understanding the setbacks along the way.
Absolutely.
What other biography from the Forbes list stood out to you?
Well, the first tycoon, about Cornelius Vanderbilt, definitely caught my eye.
Okay.
He's considered the first tycoon shaping American capitalism in its early years. The book explores how his decisions, for better or worse, still resonate today.
Yeah, that's giving me robber baron vibes already.
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with the term, robber barons were powerful 19th century industrialists who sometimes used ruthless tactics to amass their wealth.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's the point, to study leaders from different eras and industries, even the controversial ones, to see what we can learn.
Precisely. It's not about copying their every move, but understanding the context they operated in, the challenges they faced, and the choices they made. It helps you develop a more nuanced view of leadership.
So you're saying studying these biographies, even those about controversial figures, can help us all develop a broader perspective on leadership and its complexities.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let's shift gears to a leader whose legacy extends far beyond one famous speech.
Okay.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" is packed with leadership lessons, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the Full Focus article we have for you breaks down 8 of them. One that strikes me most is his refusal to sugarcoat reality.
He didn't shy away from the harsh truths of his time.
Right.
Instead of pretending everything was fine, he acknowledged the very real struggles faced by Black Americans.
It's true.
Do you think that directness, that willingness to confront difficult realities, is something that a lot of leaders today lack?
It's easy to shy away from hard truths, but I think great leaders acknowledge them, name them, to create a foundation for change.
Yeah.
You can't solve a problem if you don't admit it exists.
You're right. Ignoring a problem doesn't make it go away.
Yeah.
Another lesson that stood out in that article was Dr. King's ability to call people to their highest values.
Inspiring action without compromising principles. That's a hallmark of lasting leadership. Think about the calls for nonviolent resistance amidst so much injustice.
Right.
That's incredibly difficult, and yet it's what created lasting change.
It's also about painting a vivid picture of a better tomorrow, right? Dr. King didn't just complain. He made you see a world transformed by justice.
That's powerful. You have to give people something to strive for, a shared vision that's both tangible and emotionally resonant.
Speaking of vision, that leads us perfectly into our next article. The McKinsey study. They interviewed 67 top CEOs.
Yeah.
And one of the findings that stood out was their focus on what they called the soft stuff.
You might think that leading a major corporation is all about data and decisions.
I can see that.
But these CEOs manage company culture and teamwork with just as much rigor.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about being a brilliant strategist.
Right.
It's also about building and leading a team that can execute that strategy.
Exactly. And these CEOs don't see the board as a hurdle,
Oh,
but
right.
as a resource. They leverage their board's expertise, especially during times of
That
crisis.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You've got a group of experienced people right there. Why not tap into that knowledge?
It's tempting to see the board as just oversight, but the best CEOs turn them into a strategic advantage.
These aren't just CEO skills either. This focus on people and teamwork applies to building any team that can weather any storm.
You're exactly right.
That brings us to our final source for this deep dive, the Northridge Group article. I have to say I really appreciated the down-to-earth advice from the CEO they interviewed. He's been in the trenches, so to speak, and his insights felt really relatable.
I agree. It's a good reminder that leadership isn't some lofty, abstract concept.
Like,
It's practiced every day in every interaction.
one lesson that really resonated with me was everyone is a potential teacher.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that we only learn from people who are older or more experienced than us.
Right. But that idea of everyone is a potential teacher reminds me of how you're always so curious and open to learning from every experience.
Well, thank you.
That constant growth mindset is so important for leaders.
It's about being open to new ideas and perspectives no matter where they come from.
Yes. And it also ties back to that CEO's point about self-awareness being essential. That means knowing your strengths and your weaknesses.
So knowing your strengths and weaknesses lets you build a team that complements your skills. That's crucial.
Exactly. It's not about being good at everything yourself. It's about recognizing your limits and finding people who fill those gaps.
You know, as we've been talking about all these different sources,
Yeah.
I've noticed how many of these lessons emphasize human connection.
Yeah.
It seems like leadership isn't just about skills. It's about people.
Absolutely. It's about building relationships, inspiring others, and creating a shared sense of purpose. You can have all the technical skills in the world, but without that human element, you won't be a truly effective leader.
So we've got insights from titans of industry, civil rights icons, and even everyday CEOs.
Yeah, a good mix.
What stands out to you as the most surprising or useful takeaway from all of this?
That's a great question. I think what surprised me most is how consistent these themes are despite the diversity of our sources. Whether we're talking about Steve Jobs or Martin Luther King Jr. or a CEO in the trenches, there's a common thread of vision, resilience, and human connection.
That's so true. And I think one of the most useful takeaways is the reminder that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly learning, adapting, and growing.
Exactly. And as you think about your own leadership style, is there one particular area you'd like to focus on developing in yourself? What would that look like for you?
Wow, that's a big question. I think for me, it's about finding a balance between being decisive and being collaborative.
Okay.
I tend to overthink things sometimes,
Okay.
which can slow down the decision-making process, but I also don't want to be a dictator and make decisions without input from my team.
That's a great point. I think it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're confident in your own judgment, but also open to different perspectives.
Right. And I think it ties back to what we were talking about earlier with Dr. King,
Mhm.
being willing to make tough decisions, but also being compassionate and understanding.
I see that connection. It sounds like you're already on the right track.
Yeah.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Just keep learning and experimenting, and you'll find that balance that works best for you and your team.
I appreciate that encouragement.
Yeah.
So we've talked about big picture leadership,
Yeah.
the kind that shapes companies and movements. But what about the everyday stuff? The skills we can all use to be more effective in our work and even our personal lives. It's easy to get overwhelmed by these larger-than-life figures. Where do we even begin?
Well, the Northridge Group article actually had some great practical advice that any of us can apply no matter what our role is.
Okay, like what? I'm all ears.
For one, remember those wobbling plates we mentioned?
Uh,
Those crises that can pop up unexpectedly?
Yeah.
They happen to all of us, not just CEOs. And the way we react in those moments says a lot about our leadership.
I can definitely relate to that. So it's not about avoiding crises altogether.
No, it's about staying calm, assessing the situation, and making clear decisions. Don't panic,
Okay.
don't get bogged down in the details,
Mhm.
and definitely don't try to hide the problem.
So transparency is key. Don't try to sweep things under the rug.
Absolutely. Be honest with your team, even if the news isn't good. People appreciate authenticity, and they need to know what's going on so they can be part of the solution.
That makes sense. And it builds trust too, right? Being open and honest, even when it's tough.
Exactly. Trust is the foundation of any strong team. When people feel like they can rely on you to be truthful, they're more likely to follow your lead.
What else did the Northridge article highlight? I'm finding this really helpful.
This one might seem basic, but it's often overlooked communication. And I don't just mean talking, I mean truly communicating.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do we become better communicators?
It starts with understanding your audience. What are their needs, their motivations, their concerns? Tailor your message to resonate with them.
So don't just broadcast a message, but actually connect with the people you're talking to.
Precisely. And be clear and concise. No one wants to wade through a wall of text or jargon to get to the point.
So it's kind of like we do here on the deep dive, right?
Exactly.
We take complex information and make it accessible and engaging for our listener.
Exactly. You're a natural at this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But you're right. Effective communication is a skill that takes practice. And it's essential for any leader.
Absolutely.
And I bet it ties back to that whole soft stuff that the McKinsey article talked about.
Yeah.
Managing people, motivating them. That all relies on good communication.
You're absolutely right. It's all connected. Another practical tip from the Northridge article was the importance of being present.
Okay, I'm picturing someone physically being in a room. But you mean more than that, right?
Yeah.
Mentally present.
Yes, both. Put away your phone, minimize distractions, and truly listen to what people are saying.
That's easier said than done in our hyper-connected world where we're constantly bombarded with notifications and emails.
It's true, but it makes a huge difference. When people feel heard and seen, they're more likely to be engaged and productive.
And it creates a more positive and respectful work environment.
Absolutely. Being present also means being proactive. Don't wait for problems to arise.
Okay.
Anticipate them.
Right.
And don't be afraid to delegate. You don't have to do everything yourself.
Delegating is something I'm still working on. Letting go of control can be tough.
I hear you. But delegating effectively is a sign of strength, not weakness. It shows that you trust your team and that you're empowering them to grow.
And it frees you up to focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly. Speaking of the bigger picture, one thing that really resonated with me from the MLK article was the importance of having a vision.
A dream, if you will.
Yes, but not just any dream, a dream that's rooted in your values, a dream that inspires you and others to action.
So it's not just about setting goals, but about connecting those goals to something larger than yourself.
Exactly, and communicating that vision in a way that moves people.
Like Dr. King did. He didn't just talk about equality. He painted a picture of a world where his children wouldn't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Powerful, right? That's what a vision can do. It can ignite passion, inspire action, and create lasting change.
I'm curious, what's your leadership vision? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
Wow. You're really putting me on the spot here. But I appreciate the question. I think for me, it's about creating a more equitable and just world.
Okay.
I know that sounds ambitious, but I truly believe that even small actions can make a difference.
I love that. And it aligns so well with the themes we've been discussing about leadership being about more than just personal gain.
Yeah.
It's about making a positive impact on the world.
Yes, exactly. And I think it starts with how we treat each other, how we communicate, how we build relationships. If we can create more respectful and inclusive environments that will ripple outward and create positive change on a larger scale.
I couldn't agree more. So to wrap up this deep dive on leadership, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listener with?
Well, I think it goes back to the idea that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing process of learning, growing, and evolving.
So it's not about achieving some sort of perfect leadership state. It's about constantly striving to be better.
Exactly. Embrace the challenges, learn from your mistakes, and never stop seeking out new perspectives and experiences. The more you learn and grow, the more effective you'll be as a leader in all aspects of your life.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we encourage you, dear listener, to continue exploring these ideas. Read those biographies, reflect on those leadership lessons, and most importantly, put them into practice. The world needs more great leaders, and it all starts with you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep leading with courage, compassion, and a constant thirst for knowledge.